Ms. Stefonic.
Thank you. I want to begin by discussing the heinous scourge of anti-Semitism on your watch as Chancellor at CUNY. You are aware at Baruch, Jewish freshmen were welcomed with heinous anti-Semitic taunts about the hostages killed by Hamas. Quote, "Where's Hirsch, you ugly expletive, expletive? Go bring them home," end quote. Quote, "You ain't going home tonight. Go back to Brooklyn. All Zionists are terrorists," end quote. Are you aware of those anti-Semitic harassment slurs?
Welcome back to America First, where we put our country and our values first. I'm your host. And if you're new here, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe, because we're going to keep bringing you the truth that the mainstream media won't tell you. Today, we're talking about something that should outrage every single American taxpayer.
Those are deplorable statements, and if they were associated with the event at Baruch, an investigation was done and students were disciplined.
And students were disciplined in both of those cases? At Hunter, Jewish students were forced to enter the main university building under a swastika for hours. Is that correct?
My understanding of that is that the swastika was placed outside, and we have a custom of erasing all such deplorable symbols. In that particular case, there was a delay because it had to be referred to the NYPD for the anti-hate investigation.
Let me remind you of this particular case, because that's not according to your own staff. In fact, the Hunter College Director of Jewish Studies emailed university leadership requesting that the swastika be taken down. And instead, this was the response for everyone to see. Apologies, but it is not that simple. Is that the position of CUNY?
It is entirely unacceptable that.
And was this administrator disciplined who emailed?
Again, in that particular case, we were working with the New
No,
York City Police
was this
Department.
administrator disciplined for sending this response?
Any case that we have will investigate, and the appropriate action will be taken.
So what was the appropriate action taken against this administrator in this case?
In this case, as I mentioned to you, we are working with the New York City Police Department.
So no disciplinary action has been taken by CUNY? Is that correct?
Again, we will investigate any action.
So an investigation, but no actual action, like so many of these failed university presidents. But it's not just this case. You talked about how you focused on this since 2019. But let me remind you, in 2021, you hired Abdi Allah as CUNY's Chief Diversity Officer, and this role includes overseeing anti-Semitism complaints and initiatives. Were you aware at that time that this senior administrator you hired was previously employed by CAIR?
Parliamentary inquiry.
The Council on American Islamic Relations.
Gentlelady will suspend.
My time, can
what
you
is
hold the
the-
time? It was 2:25.
We'll hold the time.
Does the committee have a policy on publicizing people's personal emails?
This is a university administrator's email.
Email addresses?
No, we don't have a policy, I'm told, on that. And again, this is at the university.
This is a university email, a public university in the state of New York. Following up at 2:25, which my time is, I'm referencing the CUNY Chief Diversity Officer, who you hired in 2021. They were previously employed by CAIR, the Council on American Islamic Relations. Is that correct?
So she was hired to be the Chief Diversity Officer at the central office with no responsibility over cases that have to deal with students or faculty.
But yet you were aware that she was previously employed by CAIR.
Again, I was not directly responsible for that.
Even though she was the Senior Chief Diversity Officer?
As I mentioned to you, I was not directly responsible for that hire.
So is it okay, from your perspective, obviously it is, to have a former employee of CAIR? Let me remind you, CAIR was a co-conspirator in a terrorist financing case and has ties to Hamas, a designated terrorist organization. Is she currently still employed by CUNY?
She is.
There you go. So no action, just words here today. Even further, and by the way, her salary is paid for by the New York taxpayers, correct?
We have the expectations of total professionalism and compliance with all the rules and policies of CUNY. Any employee that breaks our policies or our rules will be investigated.
But it obviously
Action
doesn't
will be
break
taken.
CUNY's rules to have a senior employee who was previously employed by a terrorist-affiliated organization. That is unacceptable to New York taxpayers. It is unacceptable to American taxpayers. But it's not just that. Are you familiar with CUNY CAIR? This is the clinical arm of CUNY School of Law.
CUNY CAIR, I'm not familiar with them.
Well, I will remind you, the CUNY CAIR founder and professor is the head of Mahmoud Khalil's Legal Defense Fund. Are you aware of that?
No.
Does it concern you that New York taxpayers are paying the salary for the legal defense fund of Mahmoud Khalil? And I'll remind you who Mahmoud Khalil is. This is the chief pro-Hamas agitator that led to the anti-Semitic encampments at Columbia, the rioting and violent takeover of Hamilton Hall, the harassment and physical assault of Jewish students.
And we do not condone any kind of anti-Semitism.
But you
in our
allow
campuses.
the head of the clinical legal organization and a professor to be the chief legal aide to Mahmoud Khalil and do his legal defense fund.
Those decisions are made in the clinics, are made in the individual campuses.
It goes up to you. You are the chancellor.
Those decisions are made at
So you
the
take no
individual
responsibility.
campuses. I take responsibility for any behavior of our faculty.
So
and
is this
staff
acceptable?
that
Is this
anti-Semitic.
acceptable?
Any behavior that is anti-Semitic
Is
and
this
in violation
acceptable
of our
that the
rules.
legal defense fund for Mahmoud Khalil is the head of CUNY CAIR? That's acceptable under your watch.
We do have no tolerance for anti-Semitism on our campuses, and we've been very
So will
clear.
this person be fired?
Anybody that breaks our rules and our policies, there'll be an investigation. We'll investigate, and if there's any disciplinary action to be taken, we'll take it.
Let me make a prediction. No disciplinary action. This individual is not going to be fired because it's all words, no action. You have failed the people of New York. You have failed Jewish students in New York State, and it is a disgrace. I yield
Thank you,
back.
gentlemen.
I just watched this congressional hearing where a representative questioning CUNY Chancellor Stefonic about rampant anti-Semitism on college campuses. And folks, what I witnessed was a complete failure of leadership that's being funded by your tax dollars. This is exactly what's wrong with our higher education system today. Let me break down what happened here, because this is a perfect example of how radical leftist ideology has completely taken over our universities. We had Jewish students at Baruch College being harassed with disgusting anti-Semitic taunts. Students were told to go back to Brooklyn, called terrorists, and had Hamas talking points shouted at them. This is America in 2024, and this is happening at a publicly funded university. But here's what really gets me fired up. When the representative asked about disciplinary action, Chancellor Stefonic gave the same bureaucratic non-answers we always get from these failed academic administrators. Sure, they say they investigated and disciplined students, but what about the systemic problem? What about the culture that allows this to happen in the first place? The SWASTIKA incident at Hunter College is even more disturbing. Jewish students had to walk under a swastika for hours because the administration couldn't figure out how to remove it. When the director of Jewish studies asked for it to be taken down, they were told it's not that simple. Not that simple? It's a swastika on an American university campus. You remove it immediately, period. This is what happens when you have administrators who are more concerned about progressive politics than protecting students. They'll bend over backwards to accommodate every other group. But when it comes to Jewish students facing actual hatred and violence, suddenly everything becomes complicated and needs investigation. Now here's the part that should make every taxpayer's blood boil. In 2021, CUNY hired someone as their chief diversity officer who previously worked for CAIR, the Council on American Islamic Relations. This organization was a co-conspirator in terrorist financing cases and has documented ties to Hamas. And guess what? New York taxpayers are paying her salary. Think about that for a moment. We have a publicly funded university paying someone with ties to a terrorist-affiliated organization to oversee diversity initiatives, including handling anti-Semitism complaints. The irony would be laughable if it weren't so dangerous. But it gets worse. The representative revealed that a CUNY professor is heading the legal defense fund for Mahmoud Khalil, the pro-Hamas agitator who led the violent takeover at Columbia University. This is the same person responsible for the anti-Semitic encampments, the rioting, and the physical assault of Jewish students. And again, taxpayers are funding this person's salary. When pressed about whether this was acceptable, Chancellor Stefonic gave the same weak responses we've come to expect from these academic elites. Lots of talk about investigations and policies, but no actual action, no accountability, no consequences. This is the state of higher education in America today. Folks, we're funding institutions that harbor antisemitism, employ people with terror connections, and provide legal defense for violent agitators. Meanwhile, Jewish students can't even feel safe walking to class on campuses their tax dollars help support. What we're seeing here is a complete inversion of American values. These universities have become breeding grounds for radical ideology that's fundamentally anti-American. They're not educating students. They're indoctrinating them with hatred for America, for Israel, and for Jewish people. The representative was absolutely right when she said this chancellor has failed the people of New York and failed Jewish students. But this isn't just about New York. This is happening at universities across the country. Our entire higher education system has been captured by radical leftists who hate everything America stands for. We need to start asking serious questions about why we're funding these institutions. Why are American taxpayers paying for universities that promote antisemitism and employ people with terrorist connections? Why are we allowing administrators who can't even remove a swastika from campus to remain in positions of power? This is exactly why we need leaders who will stand up to the radical left and defund these corrupt institutions. We need accountability, not just investigations that lead nowhere. We need consequences, not just empty promises about policy reviews. Every parent sending their child to these universities needs to understand what they're really paying for. You're not just paying for education. You're paying for indoctrination. You're funding an environment where Jewish students are harassed and threatened while administrators who enable this behavior face no consequences. The time for tolerating this garbage is over. We need to start treating anti-Semitism on college campuses as a serious threat it is, not just to Jewish students, but to American values as a whole. When we allow hatred to flourish in our institutions of higher learning, we're failing as society. This congressional hearing exposed the rot at the heart of our university system, and Chancellor Stefonic's pathetic responses proved that these administrators are completely unfit for their positions. They're more concerned with protecting their radical ideology than protecting students from actual violence and hatred. If you're as outraged by this as I am, make sure to share this video and let people know what's really happening on our college campuses. The mainstream media won't tell you this story because it doesn't fit their narrative, but we will. That's why America First exists, and that's why your support matters. Hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the notification bell, because we're going to keep exposing the truth about what's happening in our institutions. America deserves better than this, and it's time we started demanding it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.